course.
I think if it's one thing that we learn, it's that we really, really, really depend on Hashem and no other power. You know, I want to share a story, and it's a little bit off track, but it's a story that inspires me. Maybe it will help you also. You know, a chassid came to the Baal Tanya's room, and something unusual happened during that yichidus, during that private audience. Okay, while he was standing there with the Baal Tanya left the room. Okay, and so the chassid was there in the Baal Tanya's room, in his office, on his own. Okay, and while he was standing there, he noticed that on the desk there was a watch, a pocket watch, and the time was different than his own. Okay, so he adjusted the time. He was a businessman. He had just come back from Petersburg, from that, you know, the big city, the capital city, and he adjusted the Baal Tanya's clock. A couple of minutes later, the Baal Tanya walked back into the room, and he immediately picked up the clock and changed it back. And the Baal Tanya said, here, we set the clock according to the times in Atzilus. Now, Atzilus is a spiritual world. It's a way of referencing the higher spiritual worlds. What happened? What happened in that story? Okay, there are really two completely different ways to tell time. And they're both accurate. One way is the clock in Petersburg. That's the policy of the world. Okay, that's what things look like from a physical, worldly perspective. That's what's written in all the newspapers. But then there's an entirely different way to tell time, and that's by Atzilus, the spiritual worlds. So if I ask you, what time is it now? What time is it? What are we up to in history? Where are we holding in the world? If we look at the news, if we're out there in the world, okay, we will say it's a terrible time in history. It's a time of war. It's a time of danger. The world is seriously falling apart. Every system that we trusted is no longer reliable. There's no safety, there's no security, there's no stability, there's no nothing. Nothing. It's gone. It's out the window. There's no science, there's no math, there's nothing. It's falling apart, crumbling like in a very terrifying way. Now we could set our clocks to that. And I think we all do on some level set our clocks to that time zone every single time we read the news or we hear about the news or just by living in this world. We're impacted by that, okay? But as Jewish people, I think we also have the clock that's on that Baal Tanya's desk, where he says, in this room, we set the clock by what's happening in Atzilus, by the heavenly spheres. And what is that? We could literally pull aside the curtains that are concealing Hashem, and we could recognize that even this part of the story that seemingly is bad, is actually something from Hashem. It's all Hashem.
Absolutely.
It looks like it's the government and the politicians who are calling the shots. It looks like it's the people, places, and things that are in charge, and it's really not. It's all Hashem. Now, anyone with some logic could look at us and say, could you get real? Could you be logical? Don't you see? Stop putting your head in the sand. Don't you see what's happening here? There's a whole story here where people are in charge and they're doing a bad job. So get real. But this is what we're talking about. We operate by a different time zone. We have a different set of logic. And we have a soul, right? From deep within our souls, we know that there's a different truth and we see it so clearly. So yes, our physical eyes could see people running the world and doing terrible things, terrible things. And from a deeper place within us, we see Hashem running the world.
That's right, the real boss.
This sight of Hashem running the world needs to be more real to us than the sight of people running the world. And that's a choice that we desperately need to make this choice, because I think it's impossible to be sane in today's world, and it's impossible to be sane, to be normal, to be healthy, to be stable, to be to be sane. I don't have a better word than sane, to feel sober, right?
Yeah.
Without knowing and trusting that Hashem is in charge. Because if people are in charge, we are doomed for disaster. We're in danger. There's no hope. Every day we wake up in the morning, we want to consciously set our clocks, not by Petersburg, but by Atzilus. Not by the reality of Hashem's hiddenness.
Yeah.
And I want to add something. There is definitely something we could do. You know, some people think that to be spiritual, to be Hashem, conscious of Hashem, we need to be serious, and we need to be sad, and we need to be focused on what's wrong. And here's the thing. I think it starts from this. It starts from waking up in the morning and knowing, looking out your window and seeing, instead of seeing that the world is falling apart, to see that the world is coming together in exactly the way Hashem wants it to be for Geula. It's a complete shift in perspective every day to consciously choose a perspective, a Geula perspective, a Hashem conscious, a God consciousness, a consciousness of Hashem, right? A complete shift in perspective that this world and everything that's happening, it's run by Hashem and it's for us and it's taking us to a good place, okay? This complete shift on a more personal level, okay? Usually when I look at my watch, I look at it from the perspective of what's happening next, okay? What time is it? It's time to cook, it's time to eat, it's time to work, it's time to go to sleep, it's time to change the baby's diaper, it's time to clean the dishes, it's go to a doctor, do the exercise, do whatever's on our agenda, right? That is only one dimension of life. And I think we all can relate to this. You know, we get stuck in the what I have to do and what has to get done and what I'm supposed to do next and what happened before and what's going to happen after. It's really only one dimension of life. And that would be like looking at the events of the Megillah as if they are random details that are unrelated to each other and disconnected from the bigger picture of the story. And they're not. Every detail of our lives, everything we do, every situation that we encounter, every challenge, every technical thing that we need to do, nothing is irrelevant. And that's why when we're talking about being Hashem conscious and something has to change, you know, it's not about, it's really elevating everything that we are already doing, injecting everything we're doing with just more awareness, a little bit more awareness that we are in a special, a unique time in history. And Hashem is calling us home. And we're answering, Hineni, I'm here. So everything, you know, if we would be in the Purim story today, what would it look like? Let's think for a second, okay? The news reports would constantly be blabbering about what Haman said and what didn't say, how the weather looks, how the weather doesn't look. They would be analyzing his words, his expressions. He went here, he did that, he said the other thing. He was thinking this or that, he planned this, he planned that. And Achashverosh likes him, he doesn't like him. Esther lost 4.5 pounds while fasting, and now she looks pale and green. Maybe Achashverosh will get rid of her. Scientists speculate that she is going to faint before she gets a chance to talk to Achashverosh because she fasted for so many days, right? And she's losing her beauty. The news reports would be so noisy and we would get dizzy and none of it would matter. None of it made a difference. None of it. And I'm sure there were news reports of the time on their level because news reporting was always part of culture, of all culture, right? None of it would matter. Because the real story was the inside story. The real story was the relationship between each of us and Hashem. The real story was the way we lost awareness of Hashem's presence and we found it. So we could think big deal, okay, big deal. And I think till now we thought, many of us thought big deal. I always thought big deal. I could do both. I could be aware of Hashem and every day I could read the news for my, just to relax, right? I could follow the news and I could also be aware of Hashem's direction of every detail. It doesn't really work that way, okay? A man came to a sage and asked him to teach him everything he knows. Can you teach me everything you know? And the sage said, sure, I'll teach you everything I know. And so the man said, how long will it take for me to learn all your wisdom? How long will it take for you to teach me everything that you know? And the sage looked at him and he said, it will take me about 2 years to teach you everything I know. The man said, well, 2 years is a long time. What if I hurry? What if I really focus on the time and I try to learn very, 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 very fast? The sage said, oh, If you're in a hurry and you're rushing, it will take about 4 years. What? 4 years? Why would it take double the time? If I am rushing, it should take half the time, right? Not double the time. And the sage said something very, 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 very powerful. And obviously the story is made up, but I love the story because it so resonates with me. The sage said, if you have one eye on the clock, you have only one eye to learn. So it will take double the time. And the story really resonates with me because we cannot keep one eye on the news and the other on this inside story. We could, but it comes at a price. It comes at a very painful price. If we really want to live in Hashem's time zone, if we really want to focus on being part of the story, making a difference, every ounce of our energy that we invest on the outside story takes away from our ability to be in the inside story. And we really need to enter the inside story. Go ahead. That's so beautiful. I want to just translate a little bit what you just said, right? She's saying that she was a very fearful person. And I want to repeat this for the recording also. Someone is sharing that she was a very fearful person. And then she asked herself, how do I see Hashem? Do I see Hashem as a judge? Or do I see Hashem as a loving father? And she said she started consciously noticing in her life when all the goodness, all the little bits of kindness that Hashem was showering her with. And she said, is that what you mean? That's what made you into more calm, that helps you in general become more calm? So I want to share something about what you're saying based on that, my own personal experience. I feel that there's a battle for my mind. I am constantly drawn away into the negativity, into the fear, into like, oh my goodness, what is going on here in this world? Something bad is happening here, okay? And then when I come back to these groups, to this community here, to our learning community, we're really plugging into Hashem, but we're also plugging into and connecting with each other and with the energy of our shared trust in Hashem. To me, that is uplifting. It's elevating, and it gives me strength and joy, because the truth is that we are not in charge of what happens. Somebody posted a question on the chat: if I don't read the news, how will I know what's happening with other people? We all know what's happening with other people, whether or not we read the news. The news is really about what someone said or what someone didn't say, what someone tweeted, and what's going to happen and what might happen, and devastation. And all of that, we have no control over. We have no control over any of it. And the way that we could help is literally doing another mitzvah, sharing a little bit of kindness, putting that coin to charity, any little thing that we do creates positive energy in the world and literally puts out the fires on those walls that Malki described. The walls of Galus are on fire. And we want those fires to we want it to happen smoother. We don't want it to happen with a fire. We want it to happen with peace. We want it to happen with love. We want it to happen with revealed goodness, with dancing, with joy, with revealed miracles. That's what we want. And that's the energy of Adar. And that's even more so the energy of Purim. It's an unleashing of beautiful light. In preparation for Purim, Esther's first thing was Lech Knesses Kol Yudim, go gather all the Jewish people. And as we're talking here, I realize that this gathering itself is the cure. Because in this space where we're all sitting around the same table talking about Hashem, all of a sudden we get more clear. All of a sudden we feel more elevated. And that joy and that strength allows us to do something good. Because when I'm going to walk out of my room and my kids are not yet sleeping, okay, I'm not going to be annoyed at them, because it's good. It's all good. And if there's a mess downstairs, it's okay. We're in a happier place. So I guess one of the practical things we can all take out of this is to Kneis. Let's make community and gathering and sharing, talking about Hashem, a regular practice of our lives. I think we have to restart our weekly, maybe right after Purim, we should restart. It's interesting tonight. I learned the mimer, but I feel like the discussion after the mimer was much more important. So with Hashem's help, we are going to continue this after Purim. I want to wish everybody a joyous, meaningful, beautiful Purim. Let's just wrap up, okay? So we are at this moment in history. That's what everybody's been saying here, right? This is our moment when we really need to sit up, stand up, and get involved in actively doing whatever we could to put out that fire, to alleviate the birth pangs of Mashiach's arrival for ourselves, for all of the Jewish people, and for the world. And the way that we do that is by choosing Hashem, by the Purim, by getting into that place, digging deep inside of our souls, that to tap into that deep connection, even in a way that transcends our logic, but not chas v'shalom below logic, but above it, to the place deeper inside of ourselves where we want Hashem more than we want comfort or pleasure or any other forms of unstable security promises. We don't want pacifiers anymore. We want the real comfort. We want the real reassurance. We want the real deal, the real salvation. So now is that time. We can do that with more awareness of Hashem, with more simcha, with more focus, with more connection. And to do that extra mitzvah, we're at that time where literally every mitzvah matters. We are that Esther. Just one other thought that's very, very powerful that I think about every year on Purim. Hashem fulfills every halacha that there is. And on Purim, there's halacha that we, you give tzedakah to everyone who stretches out their hands. Okay, so Hashem does that too. So let's stretch out our hands on Purim. There's so much to do on Purim. It's a very, very busy day. As Jewish women, each of us is the Esther of our generation. And it's up to us to plead before the King for the lives of our people and for the lives of the world. So literally, let's use that day to pray to Hashem, to give tzedakah, to strengthen in unity, and make a commitment to do good that will extend even beyond Purim. Let's make a commitment now that we're going to keep up this community of learning. I just realized now it's impossible not to, even though I'm writing the book, and even though the book is so important. It's an agenda, but it's not, it can't take away the place of this. That's for me on my own person, for each of you in your own way, to really speak about this and give light and strength and hope to the people around you. Help people connect to Hashem, help people connect to themselves, to ourselves, to our neshama, because we are one family. We're really one family, and every one of us matters. We need each and every one of us to contribute, and we are on our way home. That's where we're going, with our one Father who loves us, who has loved us all along. And may we see the v'nahapachu, that final transformation today, here and now, way before Purim actually comes, and we could celebrate Purim in the Beis HaMikdash together with Mashiach and Mordechai and Esther and all the people we love, and even before Purim.